I often talk about how we need to get involved in the culture. And those that are involved in the culture, whose ideas are put forward that actually advance conservative causes, or even just shed a certain reality on our country, on our troops, things that we hold dear. They need to be supported and they need to be protected, especially in certain cases where the left is trying their hardest to push back and trying to dominate in certain areas. Right now, we have a huge problem with the left trying to effectively demasculate our military, to make it seem very demonic in nature, to make everyone in it seem horrible. They're not. They're some of the greatest people in our country. They're some of the most selfless people in our country. Are they a little rough around the edges? Oftentimes, yes, but they have to be. That's part of their job. They are the rough, violent men willing to do violence on our behalf in order to keep us safe, and they should be respected. Does that mean that the military never makes a mistake? Absolutely not. Does that mean we should never call them out on these mistakes? Absolutely not. We absolutely should. They are a public entity, and as such, they need to be held accountable at all costs. However, lately, the left has seen to it to try to demonize them, to change them into something completely different, not into a fighting force meant to keep our country safe, but as a political organization meant to advance its politics. And anything that goes against that narrative needs to be destroyed as quickly as possible. It needs to be dehumanized. Anyone involved needs to be dehumanized. Anything in its past needs to be rewritten. There can be no real storytelling. And that brings me to an issue that has been happening in the gaming world. And you might have heard of this, you might not have heard of this, but you should hear about this. Right now, there is a game in development called 6 Days in Fallujah. And the left wants it canceled. They want it destroyed as soon as humanly possible. The reason is because it tells the story of soldiers who took part in Fallujah during the war in Iraq. Now, the left wants you to think that it is a game that glorifies war crimes. What it really does is puts you in the boots of the people who had to fight in Fallujah. It was a very bloody war. It was a very scary war. There were things that happened in that war that, it's almost like a horror movie whenever you hear about it. And 6 Days in Fallujah, what it does is it takes the stories of very real soldiers who were there and puts them into video game form. It allows you to see firsthand, well, I should say firsthand in a way, what these guys experienced. So you just kind of get a fraction of what they had to go through. Now, the left wants you to believe that every person who participated in this, and it's just awful. It was nothing but a big war crime. These soldiers committed nothing but war crimes, but they're very human people, just like you and I, who went out and followed orders. That's a lot of what happened there. And the left wants it canceled because it humanizes the military. They can't have that happening. They can't have you feeling sympathy for these soldiers. They can't have you feeling sympathy for or understanding the logistics about what happened there. This is from Eric Kane at Forbes. The attempt to cancel 6 Days in Fallujah is dishonest at best. And he writes a very good article about it. He says 6 Days in Fallujah is an upcoming video game documentary about the Second Battle of Fallujah during the Iraq War, a bloody, horrific battle between joint U.S., U.K., and Iraqi forces against insurgents who occupied the city after the fall of Saddam Hussein. Naturally, this kind of game will be controversial. This one was so controversial that it was first canceled over a decade ago when it was being published by Konami. I've already written an extensive piece about the efforts by game journalists, game developers at other studios, and Twitter outrage mob to get this game banned or canceled. Someone's even created a change.org petition that claims the game will, quote, also inevitably breed a new generation of mass shooters in America and brainwash gamers into thinking racism is okay. So as you can see already, there has been a massive effort from various places to try to get this game kaput, to try to take it off the face of the earth, to make sure it never sees the light of day. And it's sad. It's sad that this is happening because I think it's a great way, it's a great tool to help you understand history as it was seen by the people who were there. They don't want that, though. But it continues. Methinks they do protest too much, but then I've never been fond of Jack Thompson's school of video game criticism. Jack Thompson, a while back in the 90s, was a lawyer who was trying to get violent video games pulled off of shelves. He was trying to censor video games that he found, or that he thought were a little too disagreeable for his taste. There was a big culture war around it. He eventually lost that battle. He was even disbarred at one point in time. 6 Days in Fallujah is the cancellation of the week, and it doesn't matter what the developers have said or the fact that nobody has actually played the game yet. It's not even out yet. The mob has decided that it's racist, as it often will do. It has no information, no real information, actually. It's just decided that it's racist because somebody nearby said it, and that's the call that they took up automatically. The mob has decided that it's racist, that it will harm people of color, that it will make gamers anti-Arab and anti-Iraqi, and so forth. That it will create mass shooters. The sky will fall. You get the drift. All this, mind you, in a climate where Call of Duty is the best-selling game of the year. Beyond the principle of the thing, I don't believe in censorship and find efforts to ban art of any kind absolutely, and he finds censorship and efforts to ban art deplorable. The effort to cancel this game is simply dishonest, full stop, and I have to agree with him 100%. No one really knows what this game is about who is attempting to cancel it. And despite the fact that developers have tried to come out and say, hey, here's what we're doing, here's the purpose of the video game, we have real soldiers telling the stories that are helping us create this game. That seems to them a horrible thing as well. They just want it canceled, period. They're going to throw up every excuse under the sun in order to try to get it canceled, declaring that it's racist, that it's going to create violent people. It's a very shallow argument that has really no proof behind it, but I'm going to get to why in a second. People are either lying about what they know about the game, ignorant entirely, and just parroting others, like I said, making unsubstantiated claims that the game will promote war crimes, twisting headlines to misrepresent the developers, or conveniently ignoring the game's actual description. Many claim that 6 Days in Fallujah will only tell one side of the story, the Marine side. That doesn't line up with what the developer Highwire Games actually said. And he said, we understand the events recreated in 6 Days in Fallujah are inseparable from politics. Here's how the game gives voice to a variety of perspectives. The stories in 6 Days in Fallujah are told through gameplay and documentary footage featuring service members and civilians with diverse experience and opinions about the Iraq War. So far, 26 Iraqi civilians and dozens of service members have shared the most difficult moments of their lives with us, so we can share them with you in their words. The documentary segment discuss many tough topics, including the events and political decisions that led to the Fallujah battles as well as their aftermath. While we do not allow players to use white phosphorus as a weapon during gameplay, its use is described during the documentary segments. During gameplay, players will participate in stories that are given context through the documentary segments. Each mission challenges players to solve real military and civilian scenarios from the battles interactively, offering a perspective into urban warfare not possible through any other media. We believe the stories of this generation's sacrifice deserve to be told by the Marines, soldiers, and civilians who were there. We trust you will find the game, like the events it recreates, to be complex. So you can kind of see from the developer's description already, this is going to be a very well-studied, very well-researched, very well-told game. It takes stories from people who were there, not just from the perspective of the soldiers, but from the citizens who had to endure it. This is obviously going to be a very respectful telling of the 6 Days in Fallujah. How is it possible for you to claim that 6 Days in Fallujah tells just one side of the story when at least 26 Iraqi civilians are part of the story, he asks. And it's a good point. Or that the game won't include politics when they clearly say it will, at least in the documentary portion. The game itself is about recreating the tension and fear and uncertainty of urban warfare, but instead of leaving it at just that, Highwire includes a documentary portion that goes much deeper. Why is this wrong? Doesn't this actually prove the opposite point? The only answer I come up with is that people are being dishonest and or lazy. They are not arguing in good faith. They are not taking the developer at their word. They are assigning motives, making claims without evidence, and drawing assumptions for no reason other than this is what cancellation mobs do. So why do they do it? Why do they go after this game before it's even released? I'm not sure. All I have are guesses. And he kind of proceeds to give guesses, but I can actually kind of give you some insight here after having studied these people for a while. As I said earlier in this video, one of the biggest reasons that they want this canceled are two, really. One is a knee-jerk reaction. They see a game where you will be shooting a certain race quite often. Shooting at them, shooting them in their homes. You will be in a position where you are a U.S. military, someone from the U.S. military shooting at a race of people in Iraq, and so this already is enough for them to say that the game is racist. They don't care that it's effectively a first-person documentary where you get to experience what these people experience. That they don't care that it's a faithful retelling of a very bloody and very high-stakes, high-consequence story of a huge part of our military history that you should learn about, that everyone should learn about. Not only that, it gives you an idea of what it's like to be in these situations. They don't like that. They automatically think that this is racist. They don't care that it has all this stuff attached to it. They just see one person shooting an entire race of people, at least, and that's enough to want it to get it canceled. They don't care about the education aspect of it. Nothing. It has to be canceled because you cannot apparently tell stories if it means that you have to tell them accurately. The second is, as I mentioned earlier, they do not want the military looked at as humans. The left does not really put a lot of value on the military. They don't think that the military should be a thing at all, really. At least not in its current state, which is exactly what they're trying to do by morphing it into more of a political organization. They're trying to help or encourage hard leftists to come in and infiltrate it and change it from the inside, as they do with a lot of different things. And they want to paint everything that it does as a war crime. So if this game is what they say it is, then it's going to humanize the military. It's going to put you into the boots of soldiers that you have to, and you will experience what they experienced. You will feel their fears. You will feel their anxieties, their anticipations. And that's going to open up your eyes as to what it's like to be in the military, at least even just a little bit. And they can't have that. They can't have you thinking that way about the military. It undoes too much work that they've put into to dehumanize the military, to make it seem evil, to make it seem like something you should utterly reject. Because there are no humans in the military. It's all monsters, but it's not. These are great people put into a situation, sometimes a situation they don't want to be in, but they're there. They have to follow orders. It's what they do. And any kind of thought that, hey, maybe these people aren't so bad after all, is enough to make the left just go absolutely gaga. So they don't want this. They want it rejected. They don't even want it to see the light of day. They would rather you not even hear about it. But if you are going to hear about it, they want to paint it in a certain way that automatically paints it as horrible. For instance, this is from Kotaku. You don't have to run the exclusive reveal for the War Crimes game. They don't tell you what it's called. They don't care what it's called. All they know is what it's about. And they want to paint it right from the title as a war crime game. They don't want to give you a breath. They don't want to give you a moment to consider that this game is anything other than an evil retelling, or an evil look at the way the military is run, or an evil look as to how soldiers are. Immediately, they want you to think war crime. 6 Days in Fallujah, war crime. They want you to associate the two things together. And as Eric Kane said, this is a very dishonest way to go about doing things. This isn't how this is working. So, my advice to you, Learn everything you can about 6 Days in Fallujah if you're a gamer. If you're not a gamer, regardless. This is one of those times where we have an opportunity to have a presence on the mainstream stage. Even if the developers of this game aren't conservative in any way, it doesn't matter. They are absolutely telling a story with 100%, or at least close to as close to 100% accuracy as they can get. It is going to be a way to kind of view the military in a very respectful light. And when I say respectful, I don't mean just, absolute worship. I mean, it exposes some of the flaws. It shows you some of the hardships, some of the things that, we as civilians don't really get to see, and that's fine. I think that's great. I think a 100% view of something is better than a 50% view of something. But learn about it. Support it if you can. If you see anybody trying to paint it as a horrible war crime game, you'll have the knowledge to be able to argue against that. And that's very important in this stage of our development as a society. Right now, we have the left trying to overtake society. We have them trying to morph and pervert and twist all sorts of things, whether they be superheroes or even J.R.R. Tolkien's work. Right now, their latest victim is Middle-earth. They're trying to effectively write history. They're trying to direct the way that we see everything. And there are people out there who are trying to introduce reality. We need to protect these people. So when 6 Days in Fallujah comes out, support it if you can, buy it, play it, talk about it. Even if you're not a gamer, educate yourself about the game, because the importance of this game's release is going to do a lot more damage to the narrative that the left is trying to create for the U.S. military than anything. Many people who are young will likely play it. I'm going to play it. I know my friends are going to play it. And we'll be able to talk about it. And that's one of the biggest things that we need to do, is we need to talk more about these things, generate hype, generate spread. Because if we can spread these ideas, then the left is not going to have a lot of power in the future. I'll see you in the next video. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or learned anything, please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification icon so you're made aware when we upload new content. See you in the next video.